everyone. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here today. We're going to go ahead and get started. My fellow board member, Sarah Mahan, is going to welcome us with an opening reflection. As we gather today in friendship and community, we are blessed to be in relationship with one another. All of us taking a moment out of our very busy lives to show support, to learn, and to reflect the generous love that has been given to us by that which is greater than we are. We are called by the divine to love each other. And so we ask for the courage to go first with humility and grace, to be bold with love as our armor. May we lead with generous love so that those who follow are given a chance to live in power and thrive. May our time and this meal be blessed. Amen. I'd like to welcome all of you for joining us today. Thank you for supporting the YWCA's 2022 Leadership Luncheon. My name is Molly Phillips, and I am so very proud to be the current board president of this amazing organization. And standing right next to me is our fabulous executive director, Anne Marie Shireen. Thank you all. After a 2-year hiatus from in-person gatherings, we are so excited to see so many of you in this room. We want this community to be aware that even though we couldn't be face-to-face, you continue to make a difference. And when I say we, I mean all of you in this room and those of you joining us virtually. Your support lifts us up every single day.
Yes, it does. And speaking of uplift, that's what we want this hour to be all about. You're going to meet an inspirational young woman, and you're going to hear from one of our incredible community partners, both of whom embody today's message of leading with love. And I want you to know that all of you do that too. All of you who have come together and partnered with us before COVID, during COVID, I hope after COVID. We have so much gratitude for you, our donors, our sponsors, our friends, all of you who believe in the work of the YWCA and willingly invest in it. Thank you.
And speaking of sponsors, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our partners who help make this luncheon happen every single year. Many are in this room today, and please hold your applause until the end. One of our community partners prefers to remain anonymous. The others are Coffee Communications and Banner Bank. Our luncheon sponsors are Gisa Credit Union, McDonald Zaring Insurance, Northwest Collision, Providence St. Mary Medical Center, Tallman's Pharmacy, Whitman College, Lane Printing, the Marcus Whitman Hotel, Seven Hills Winery, Walla Walla Union Bulletin, and our Leadership Circle. Our Leadership Circle is a group of people who have committed to giving $250 a year for 5 years. You'll know them by their silver circle necklaces. Members, could you all give us a wave, please? There they are. I'd also like to thank the individuals who helped us in the lead up to today. Sarah and Wendy, our Leadership Luncheon Committee co-chairs, committee members Andrea Unk, Carol Allen, Megan Tolliver, Megan DeBolt, Peggy McClung, and Teresa Larson. We'd also like to thank our table captains and our luncheon volunteers, including the Blue Zones Project and Melise Merck, who provided our centerpieces. Every year at this luncheon, the YWCA recognizes someone who exemplifies our mission in what they do and in who they are. We were not able to celebrate our 2020 and 2021 Leaders of Distinction in person, and we want to do that right now. It is my honor to lift up Judy Mulcairn, YWCA Leader of Distinction in 2020, and Ellen Wolf, YWCA Leader of Distinction in 2021. Ladies, thank you for all that you have done. And now I'd like to ask my fellow board member, Megan Tolliver, to come up and unveil our 2022 Leader of Distinction.
Good afternoon. I am so glad I was asked to introduce our 2022 Leader of Distinction. She is someone you most likely won't know, and she likes it that way. She doesn't lead a high-profile life. Instead, she works in spaces where people need her the most, sometimes 24 hours a day. I met our Leader of Distinction before COVID-19 upended our lives, about 4 years ago. I was co-leading a women's recovery group for Trilogy Recovery Community at the county jail and realized that every single woman I encountered had an extensive history of domestic violence and sexual violence. So I called the YWCA, and in just a week, this woman was a special guest at the women's recovery group. I can't tell you how thankful I was for her. I remember how vulnerable and honest she was, and that really opened the doors for the other women to feel comfortable sharing their stories. Many of the women had never talked about the violence they'd experienced in their lives, and for some, it had been going on since they were children. As I got to know her better, I learned that this remarkable woman is what Anne Marie calls a mother of the movement. She has been involved in anti-violence work formally since 1986. For many years before that, she was part of grassroots work when it was all about strategizing at kitchen tables and getting women out of town in the back of a VW bus. This was before there were shelters, before mandatory arrest laws, before the Violence Against Women Act, before domestic violence advocacy was even a thing. She began working on Crisis Line in Alaska and welcomed people to shelter, often in the middle of the night. She went on to work as a shelter advocate, support group facilitator, and eventually ran the shelter and then the entire domestic violence and sexual assault program. She was among the first advocates to do family advocacy, focused on the effects of DV on children. She facilitated parenting classes for survivors, building their families after abuse, and also served adult survivors of child abuse. She also worked with batterers during her career, leading intervention groups in partnership with court-appointed therapists. She took her considerable knowledge and experience to Child Protective Services and was a voice for survivors throughout her career there. The Anchorage office of CPS was one of the most knowledgeable about domestic violence and sexual assault, thanks to her insistence on training. When she moved with her husband to the lower 48, she took a break from this work, but she couldn't stay away for long. She joined the YWCA in 2014, leading our office in Dayton, and then became the Director of Client Services in 2016, overseeing all of the YWCA's domestic violence and sexual assault programs. In December of this year, she will embark on a well-deserved retirement. Even though we won't see her on a daily basis, we know that we'll always be in her heart because we never say goodbye at the YWCA. Please join me in thanking and celebrating Mary Bird, 2022 YWCA Leader of Distinction. Mary, thank you for all you have done and will continue to do to change and save lives.
I'm so glad you had a chance to meet Mary, and wow, I'm just blown away that you came up here. I'm going to hear about it later, I know. I had a conversation with Mary as she became our Director of Client Services. And she told me about her early work before there was such a thing as a victim services system. As laws were passed that made domestic violence a serious crime, a real crime, Mary truly believed that domestic violence would end in her lifetime. But even as action and awareness made for huge gains in the movement, Mary and advocates like her knew that the work could become so institutionalized that it lost touch with the very people the movement was there to serve. People who were victims and survivors who needed others to be next to them on their journey to healing. One of the women in that support group that happened at the county jail is really the inspiration for this luncheon today. This woman, I'm going to call her Sharon. Sharon grew up watching her dad beat up her mom. And her dad told Sharon that she didn't mean anything to him because she was a daughter, not a son. Sadly, violence became part of Sharon's adult relationships, and she turned to drugs to numb the pain. Drug activity is what put her in jail, and that's where she joined Mary's support group. Sharon learned about healthy relationships, and she began to realize that violence is not love, not ever. After she left jail, Sharon went home to her abuser. She didn't think she had any other options. But about 2 days after going home, she came to the YW. She came looking for Mary. And she told Mary that she was not going to live with abuse anymore. So she began that healing journey, and Mary was with her as she walked it. So as an ex-offender, Sharon had a really hard time finding housing. And Mary connected her with the STAR Project, one of our amazing community partners, and they helped her to get ready to rent and helped her to find an apartment. After she moved into her very own place, Sharon stayed in touch with us. And I was so happy to hear her voice in the lobby a couple of months ago. I ran out to say hi, and I was so glad that I did. Her dad had died, and in spite of the pain that he caused her as a child, she cared for him in his last days. She was worn out. But that didn't stop her from giving me the biggest smile and the biggest hug. And as we hugged, she said, "I just love all of you here." And then she said, a little bit quieter, "And I think you love me too." Her words have been with me ever since, because isn't that what we all want? Especially now, after everything that we have been through these past 2 years, personally and as a community, to know that we are loved and that we can love. Oh my, yes. I know I do. And, when I say love, I don't mean the stuff of romance novels, though, that can be nice. I'm talking about love as a verb, not as a feeling, but as a decision, as an intention, as an action, as an investment. Love as the willingness to put yourself out there to nurture and promote the personal growth of another person. Our mission at the YWCA calls for peace, justice, freedom, and dignity. And I really wish love was part of that in the words, because love is definitely part of all that. I'm a really lucky person because I get to see love in action every day at the YW. I see what happens when we work with people as people sitting next to one another, listening to each other, not as a bunch of institutional folks checking off boxes on a form. When people spend time together and make connection as people, it's easier to build trust. It takes time, but it works. I get to see love in the little things, the personal things, like a note of encouragement written by a community volunteer that goes on the bed of somebody checking into shelter. The offer of a cup of coffee that makes what could be a scary appointment a conversation between two people. Or maybe it's holding the baby so that mom can actually go down the hall to the bathroom by herself. When folks know that someone is walking by their side, they are way more likely to do the hard work of healing because they're not alone. Think about that. Think about that. I bet all of us have had that happen for us at some point in our lives. At least I certainly hope so.
I'd also invite you to think about the cost to society if that hadn't happened for Sharon. The chance of her going back to drugs when she got out of jail was high, especially when you consider the ongoing abuse and all of the unaddressed trauma from her childhood. What if she had stayed with her abuser? She most likely would have needed to go to the emergency room, and she could have landed back in jail. When you start interacting with institutions, the price tag is high.
Molly, that is so true. And, this stuff really speaks to my accounting heart. The average cost for an emergency room visit in our state is $2,200, and it's just $1,100 to just walk through the door before anything even happens, and the price tag keeps going up. And then let's look at the cost of one night or one day in the Washington State Women's Correctional Center, $195. Now compare that to the $81.56 that it currently costs for one day in shelter at the YWCA. And you all have heard me say this right here in this place 3 years ago, I believe, that at the YWCA, you don't just get a bed. If that's all you get, we have not done our job. We have not done the work of love.
It's always beautiful to see women when they begin to realize that abuse is not love, and that love is so much more than romance or attraction. They literally get younger in front of your eyes. They stand taller. They can look other people in the eyes. In just a moment, we'll hear from someone who experienced all of these changes, and she's only 26 years old. People walked alongside her, and now she's doing that for others. I'm so very happy for you all to meet Desiree.
I had hidden from most everyone I knew that I was fighting to get my kids back from CPS. I was too ashamed to admit that my ex-partner and his family were considered potentially abusive. I was drained of my confidence and self-worth. My mom helped convince me to show up at the YWCA. I wouldn't admit, even to myself, that I was in an abusive situation. But CPS told me that I was going to lose my parental rights permanently unless I left my ex's home. I told the advocates my story, glossing over the abuse, but I hadn't fooled anybody, and they offered me a room in the shelter. My first night at the YWCA was hard. I remember standing under a light, picking out travel-sized soaps from a basket, and at the time, they were the most luxurious thing that I owned, and it seemed to mock me. I realized, though, that I could walk away burdened and scarred, or I could be the light to bring strength to others who I knew were facing struggles like mine. While I lived at the YWCA, I met people who ran the whole show who treated me as an equal, never second-guessing who I was or what I could become. I went to the Link classes, living in new circumstances, and there I learned money management, how to accept my feelings without drowning in them, and how to dream and achieve. I'd been with my ex since I was 16, so I had never had control over my own life. After I graduated from Link class, the advocates helped me apply for housing assistance, and I moved into my very own home. It was just in time too, because it was the last thing that I had to check off before CPS would give me my children back. I was in a place of transition. I had missed out on so many milestones with my babies, but now I could start rebuilding our relationship, and I could rebuild the relationship with my mom. As I gained confidence, I one day reached out to the YWCA to say thank you. And just like in the shelter, I was treated with respect and dignity, but this time was different. This time I could say, look at what I've done with this second chance that you have given me. What can I do for you? I told them of my lifelong ambition to make handcrafted beauty items inspired by my background as an Indigenous woman, as a survivor. I told them of that night under the ceiling light when I dreamed of finding a way to shine. And now I wanted to include the women in the shelter in that dream. So 2 months later, I came back to donate 21 bundles of handcrafted organic beauty and luxury items, one for every woman, to remind them that they deserve respect and acceptance. I wanted to let them know that I had survived and made a life that I loved. Today, my relationship with my partner helps me show my children what love looks like. There won't be any confusion about what respect looks like. So my son will grow up to respect women, elders, and himself, so that my daughter grows up with the wisdom to surround herself with people who will empower her. We are forever in a place of transition. We are a liminal space. And when we stop growing and shifting, we become stagnant and fall apart. So in my future, I see myself going to school for business. My business name and native name is Ashe. It is Crow or Ipsalige. It means energetic river. To me, Ashe is my vessel to nourish everything I'm connected to. This is how I'm choosing to live.
I'm so happy for you to get to know Desiree, and she's here in the audience with us. Where are you, my dear? Way back there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your love with others. Now, folks, I want to call your attention to some little treasures on your table. So you see those little tins? 2 little tins go home with each one of you today. In the big tin is one of those beautiful lotion bars that you see on the screen right there. And Desiree made a special YWCA persimmon blend, persimmon, our color. And a lotion bar is really cool. You just rub it between your hands, no mess. It goes back in the tin. And then there's also a lip balm on the table. Now, if scents are not your thing, you can trade them out at a table in the lobby after the event. But I'm just so glad that you get to see the beautiful things that she made. They are from Desiree for you. So I think it's safe to say that love permeates. We hope that it does. We work to make sure that it does. It permeates the YWCA and makes a difference in the lives of hundreds of people each year in all of our programs. And when love gets going, it is hard to stop. Just watch what Desiree is doing and will continue to do. Right now, I want to invite somebody up to this podium who truly leads with love and finds so many creative ways to brighten the lives of others. Just last week, he was at an event where parents and grandparents were given books to read to kids. And he thought it was such a great thing for kids in the YWCA shelter that he brought a ton of books over. So Jim McCarthy, thank you for the books. Thank you for everything that you do. And will you come up here now and do your thing, please?
What the world needs now.
I practiced getting up here a couple times too. If you noticed. Anne Marie has given me some things I have to do. One is the theme, love. I do feel the love in this room. I feel it's so special, and we miss that so much in today's world. The second thing is, there's a country western song that I like, that you can't make old friends. Everybody in here is an old friend. And thank you for coming, and thank you for supporting. The envelopes are going to be passed out and put in, and we're here to raise money. Just to give you an idea, they're trying to raise $180,000. They've already raised almost half of that. And so what you can do today would really be helpful. And yeah, and the donor cards are these. Anything else? Wait, yeah, she helps me a lot. How's that better? You're all here because of the love and for what the programs do. I ask myself the same question, why am I here? So you're going to have to suffer with me a little bit here. I'm here for the poor and beaten down, living on the hopeless, hungry side of town. I'm here for the sick and lonely, young and old, maybe giving them a chance and a place to be told. I'm here for the women and children, hoping to restore their self-esteem and respect. I'm here because I wish I could do more. So with the passing out the envelopes and your continuing support and love for the YWCA, that's all you get from me. Thank you.
Well, hello. I'm so excited to be up here and get to introduce our keynote speaker. Hold on just a second, I'm fighting with the podium. I'm Mary Crawford. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the interim chief administrative officer at Providence St. Mary Medical Center, and I get the pleasure of working with our keynote speaker every day. As both of us being nurses, I've seen her in action, and as part of my partnership with her and the work that she does, I've seen it up close and personal, how she's making a difference for so many people. I know that we have an amazing, inspirational, deep down message of love. And it is so great that you are all using love as the theme today. I actually have a whole page about our keynote and her love that she spreads. I have worked with her for over 20 years. We started out knowing each other as young girls across the Oregon border. We grew up in certain cities over there on the Mountain Freewater and Weston side. She has an amazing heart for community and for fixing systems and working to find solutions that will meet the person where they are. Recently, when we were talking with me, she shared with me that her biggest longing is for connection and that her life work has focused on love and kindness and building our community. And I know you're going to be so inspired by the information that she shares that you're going to want to join her in this journey to make a difference for the one or the many in front of you. So would you please join me in welcoming Becky Betts to the stage?
Oh, Mary. Yes, Mary is my boss at Providence, and every day she leads with love, my inspiration. As you were talking, Mary, I was thinking of just circles, and really life does come in full circles. Leadership circles, these beautiful necklaces so many of you adorn with these circles. These tables are circles and circles. Mary's brother was my first boyfriend. When I was 15, he was a big city boy, going to Mac High. And I was a Weston McEwen Tiger Scott. And that distance of, like 12 miles, that was really hard. Oh, my word. It is an honor to be your keynote speaker. And wow, there are 1,000 podcasts on kindness and probably hundreds of thousands of books on the tender topic of love. I stand before you today, not by any means an expert on the topic, but I am a lifelong observer and a fervent student of the human condition. As I'm wrapping up my doctoral degree, go Cougs, I feel blessed to spend time my time in academia and in research, studying and learning from all the gurus and greats, many who I will reference throughout my talk. I am also a storyteller, and I really believe the rich stories that we share are vital to our existence. Stories are essential to our relationships, especially during this time of social atrophy. On our path to love is illuminated with kindness and compassion, and we are going to unpack both today. I take a lot of stock in those words, and they light my day every day. They light my way and have from a very early age. How many of you had this beauty, this Judy Blume Diaries circa 1981? Yeah, some of you, right? I still have mine. Every page was filled with the angst of prepubescent girl growing up in Eastern Oregon. And on the inside cover, barely legible, there is this quote written in pencil, so I had to type it out for you, by prominent French-American Quaker missionary, Eton de Groslay. And I read it: "I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do or any kindness I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." Clearly, this resonated with my 11-year-old self as much then as it does today. This bumper sticker has been on Bob and my refrigerator for as long as I remember. Our kids are now grown, but it is still there. It was a healthy reminder in the throes of the daily grind when all 4 children were young that as a parent, I had a choice to make every day. Being kind in our homes has immeasurable ripple effects into the future. Also, teaching, modeling, and owning the full registry of our own emotions is sound parenting. American researcher Brene Brown's latest bestseller, Atlas of the Heart, is just phenomenal. And in the book, Brene maps meaningful connections and the language of the human experience, unveiling and deep diving 150 emotions that light us up. HBO has a companion series to the book that I highly recommend as a binge-watching contender when you are in that show hole, perhaps after Ozarks ends. You bring me a glass of water, honey. Brene is well known for her research on shame and vulnerability. In her workshops, she started surveying participants in the last 5 years, more than 7,000 people, and asked them to list emotions they could recognize and name as they were experiencing them. And they came up with an average, and it was a dismal 3. And you're looking at them: sad, happy, and angry. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein said, "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." That's pretty profound. In all the vastness of our humanness, that's the best we can do: sad, happy, and angry. Having access to the right words can open an entire universe. Language is our portal to make meaning connection, to heal, and to learn from one another. We all have witnessed when we or others do not have the right words. We don't get the help we need, we give up, or we can't regulate or manage our emotions well. In the last 2 years, I've heard too many people describe their state of being as one of hopelessness or despair. You see the definitions there. Hopelessness rises out of a combination of negative life events. Despair even goes further when we have extreme hopelessness. American journalist Catherine Schultz shares her thoughts on the matter. There is no pure form of a significant event in our lives, no single emotion that solely and accurately represents love or grief or the pandemic. Even the extremity of experience, life is always busy being many things at once. It's exhaustive and restorative. It's tedious and it's exciting. It's solemn and it's comic. It's devastating and it's fulfilling. This constant flux of feeling is not only inevitable, but it's essential. It's what prevents our happiness from being complacent and our anguish from entirely enveloping us. We yearn for the universe to be simple, to be one thing or another, but it is not. Its contradictory nature is integral to its abundance. This passage reminds me of my friend and Department of Community Health icon, Sam Jackal. And she whips her head around. And her COVID silver lining lessons. COVID brought the best and the worst out in us. And Sam does not know it, but when I really needed a lift and hear the COVID silver linings, she was my lifeline to remind me. So thank you, Sam. The pandemic, the assault on our civil liberties, the Supreme Court this week, the nasty political rhetoric, the hate tearing us in two, the book bans, the atrocities in Ukraine, it is a lot. John Kabat-Zinn is American professor emeritus of medicine and the creator of mindless-based stress reduction. He is the founder of the mind-body movement, emphasizing the depths of interconnectedness between physical and mental health. And he nails it. Our lives are somehow unfolding faster than our human nervous system and psyche are able to manage. It's true. And then we had a loneliness epidemic, and then we supplanted a global pandemic. Here's the definition of loneliness. It's a gap between the level of connectedness that you want and what you have. I have real passion around loneliness. Loneliness is a public health epidemic we all should be concerned about. Over a third of Americans feel lonely. Over a quarter of our senior citizens live alone. And here's the paradox, though. The more people are connected more than ever through phones and social media and Zoom, yet loneliness continues to be on the rise. And the most digitally connected generation, teenagers and young adults, loneliness has nearly doubled in the last decade for that group, coinciding with the explosion of social media. Loneliness is dangerous. Social species pushed outside to the perimeters go into self-preservation. So this is science, and it may explain a lot of the clients we work with. When we feel isolated or disconnected or loneliness, our brains override connection with self-protection. When we are alone, we actually feel less empathy and we feel more defensive. The human brain, in its evolutionary marvel, seeks safety in numbers, and they register loneliness as a threat. And it goes right to our amygdala. We go into fight or flight and increases stress hormones. So subconsciously, we start to view other people as threats and danger, sources of rejection. And in a cruel twist, remedies for your loneliness, the connection that we need, we push away. So there are too many people in our community and in our world today that have decided to check out rather than risk feeling this disappointment and threat. Loneliness is a common pathology. A meta-analysis study by Holt and Lundstedt, living with obesity increased odds of dying by 20%. If you drink too much, 30%. If you're lonely, well, you just increase your odds by 45%. Because it's just associated with those stress hormones, the increased odds of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and anxiety. John Capriccio founded the field of neuroscience, and he dedicated his career to the scientific inquiry of understanding loneliness. And he states, at the heart of loneliness is the absence of meaningful social interaction, an intimate relationship, friendship, family connection, or community. Let's talk about systems. Golly, they frustrate me. I populated this slide with some of the most popular that affect aspects of our lives. At the bottom left, the criminal justice system. Anyone have this one figured out? Up on the top right, that's a demonstration of the public school system. No, me neither. Political systems, woo, no way. And up in the upper left-hand corner, US healthcare system. How's that working out for you? Yeah. This one has provided my paycheck for the last 3 decades, and I want to take a stick of dynamite to it. Many of our systems, most I would say, and institutions are designed, whether on purpose or not, to be oppressive and to separate us. And this is interesting, people, because human beings make up systems. And what is humans' greatest desire? A longing for connection. That is our birthright and driven in our DNA. Connection is in our neurobiology. And I believe the reason so many of us are feeling hopelessness and despair is because we are trying to fix this. We can't. The only thing we can do, the only thing we must do is heal ourselves, each other, and our communities. We need to focus on the humanity of the matter. To build an authentic relationship is the transformative act we need to heal our world. I adore the late, great Bell Hooks, a professor, a social critic, and writer. And Bell teaches that the injustice and systemic oppression we see in the world today stems from a deep collective lovelessness. Yeah. Kindness. Oh, I love kindness. I shared with you at the start of a journey that the journey to love is peppered with the foundations of kindness and compassion. Here's the definition of kindness. I'll let you read it. I highlighted the end sentence that being kind often requires courage and strength. So many people believe that the kindest among us are meek and mild. That is not true. It takes courage and strength to be kind. Let's talk a little bit about kindness. Kindness is really good for your heart. When you are kind to others, your body releases oxytocin, the hormone. It triggers a release of nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels and reduces your blood pressure. This is cardioprotective hormone. So when you're feeling stressed out or you have high blood pressure, make a point to be kind. Kindness boosts your immune system because that same oxytocin reduces inflammation in your body. And volunteering, especially in the 57 to 85-year-old crowd, people in that age group who volunteer for 2 or more organizations have an impressive 44% lower likelihood of dying early, just because you're continuing to get those little hits of oxytocin. And I know many of you in the room are volunteering a lot, so you're good. Engaging in kindness produces endorphins, the brain's natural painkiller. It also reduces stress. Perpetually kind people have 23% less cortisol running through your veins than the average population. And like most antidepressants, kindness stimulates the production of serotonin. Research calls this phenomenon the helper's high. Like weight training, we can build our compassion muscle. That's why it's important to teach kindness in the home. It is teachable and it's contagious. If we do one kind act in a crowded area, it does create a domino effect. This is marvelous research. I'm just fascinated because the positive effects of kindness that are experienced in the brain by everyone who witnesses that kind act is the same as the person who's delivering the kind act. That's amazing. We're all getting the benefits and it's propelling them to pay it forward. And have you ever been to the recipients of a Dutch Brothers coffee line when this has happened and how good you feel? And finally, kindness is free. It doesn't cost you anything to be kind. Unless you're buying me a coffee in front of me in Dutch Brothers, then it might cost you some. So, but what if an act of kindness saved a life? Nicole Phillips in the Kindness podcast shared that kindness has the power to transform a life by the ability to transform a single bad day. My mom is my best friend, and I'm lucky to have all 4 of my parents here today, Amy and Chris Mayer and Barry and Neva Gould. Can you wave? Thank you. And I just realized you're sitting next to my chief nursing officer, so no family secrets, no nicknames. You better not ruin my stellar reputation, okay? Louise, you'll let me know, right? I was sharing the theme of today's luncheon and ideas for my speech with my mom, and she shared a story really recently with me that I didn't know. It was really a life-changing story, one small in scope, yet 46 years later still holds such significance for her. My mom was 26 in her second marriage, a mom to a 5-year-old girl. And the new marriage brought with it domestic violence and fits of unpredictable rage. She was humiliated, embarrassed, and felt like a failure. She told me, quote, "I felt like a wet cardboard box left out in the rain and all the flaps were coming apart." There were no shelters where we lived. She had a support system though. She had means and she had a good job. She had loving parents, but she was too ashamed to reach out. At the lowest point of her life, she packed me up in a car and we started driving that winter day with no destination in mind, not really caring if she lived or died, certainly not in a healthy frame of mind. She remembers Cabbage Hill being treacherous. This is actually a photo of Cabbage Hill, the infamous interstate that connects Pendleton to La Grande. When she arrived at La Grande, she stopped at Taco Time. Behind the counter, a teenage boy showed her kindness. He talked to her and he smiled. His actions made her feel better about herself. She can't recall what he exactly said other than he was kind. And she said, it kind of snapped me out of my despair and I felt some worth. And as strange as it sounds, that kindness stirred something deep within. I was able to summon the courage to leave a dreadful situation. Expand one small act of kindness. You don't have to deliver the big cellophane wrap package with the bottle of wine and the perfectly paired cheese. This teenage boy behind the register threw her some kindness. Simple. Let's look at the definition of compassion. It's not a feeling, but an action. It's a verb. And American Buddhist nun Pema Chödrön writes, compassion practices daring. We draw from the wholeness of the experience, our suffering, our empathy, as well as our cruelty. It must be this way. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness, we can be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And empathy is the most powerful tool of compassion. It's an emotional skill set. Connection. Well, across many studies of mammals, from the smallest rodents to us humans, data suggests that we are profoundly shaped by social environment, and we suffer greatly when social bonds are threatened or suffered. Each one of us in this room only survived infancy because someone had such an urge to connect with us that every time they were separated from us or heard us cry, they felt social pain. And as infants, when we were separated from our caregivers, we cried, again, driven by social pain. We may not like that we are wired in such a way that our well-being depends on our connections with others, but facts are facts. We have all been asked that question. What person, living or dead, would you have to dinner? My answer, easily, anthropologist Margaret Mead. My Judy Blume diary was filled with plenty of inspirational quotes peppered by this wonder. One of her most famous stories is when she was teaching a class and asked her students, what would you say what is the earliest sign of a civilization? A clay pot, tools made of iron? How about a domesticated houseplant? Her students answered. Well, she said, these are all early signs. But here's what I believe to be the evidence of the earliest true civilization. She held high above her head a human femur, the largest bone in the body, and pointed to a grossly thickened area where the bone had been fractured and then healed. Such signs of healing are never found in the remains of earliest, fiercest societies. In their skeletons, we find clues of violence, a rib pierced by an arrow or a skull crushed by a club. But the healed bone that shows that someone must have cared for an injured person, hunted on his behalf, brought him food, served him at their own personal sacrifice. That is civilization. Please meet Norma. Norma is a woman we are fortunate enough to work with in population health. Norma was referred to us, and I remember all of us crushed from the stories of trauma this woman has experienced, only exacerbated by systems that had given up on her. With permission, I share her story. These are Norma's words. I have been through multiple traumas, mental, physical, sexual, and isolation from family and society for reasons beyond my control. Love, kindness, and compassion have been my greatest healers, along with laughter, by allowing myself to experience and express my emotion in healthy ways. If I was angry, I showed love and kindness to someone and compassion to myself. It is hard to break down what and how exactly things worked. They just somehow clicked one day, and things began changing for the better. My outlook became brighter, and my future, well, I have one now. I have faith that if I can do this, anyone can with love and support. Norma is a gifted artist. On the left is one of her diamond paintings. I didn't know what diamond paintings were. You have to have incredible patience. Diamond painting is a combination of cross stitch and paint by numbers. You use an applicator and apply hundreds of sparkling resin rhinestones one by one. And these are her rubber band bracelets she makes and gives away. This was a batch she gave away to her caregivers for upcoming surgery. She uses art to calm her nerves. She channels anxiety into art, and giving it back empowers her. Her community population health nurse, Christy Capps, these are her words. Norma works in all sorts of mediums, crochet, drawing, bracelets, photography. Her apartment is full of art. She enters pieces into the state fair, usually wins ribbons. She's a consultant now for Peak Zebra as well as Beautiful Disaster. Norma inspires me. She's incredibly resilient and one of the most disciplined people I know. She really takes her mental health seriously and does everything she can to avoid relapse. She journals daily, attends her counseling appointments, takes the initiative, and tries to arrange all the details of her care herself. She surrounds herself with people who care about her well-being. She checks herself into residential treatment when she feels herself slipping. She has provided me so much valuable feedback on the patient perspective, navigating mental illness in our valley. I am better at my job because of her. I thoroughly enjoy her company and use her as an example all the time, how people can take back their life and soar. This is Rachel and Norma, and community health worker Rachel, and behind her, community health worker Miranda. And these are Rachel's words. Watching Norma blossom's been a gift, an honest gift. It's so pure. Being a part of this journey with her, the good, the bad, the ugly, we've been through so much. She has a huge heart. In life, I've always lived by how I treat others, how I want to be treated. I hope I would not have to do it alone. No one should ever have to. When I first met Norma, she was reluctant and closed off, not wanting to accept help from us. The more we showed up, the more she knew she had someone in her corner. Seeing Norma now using healthy scoping skills, being able to notice when she's not okay and asking for help. Wow, she's resilient and kind and caring and strong and an advocate for people, not just to get better, but effective care. Norma has become part of our big family. I would walk and do this all over again just to see her grow. Thank you, Norma, for letting us walk beside you. You have not only shown us in different light, but taught us so much. Thank you for opening my eyes to a better understanding. Norma is here today with her sister, Ashley. Norma, thank you for letting us share her story. Norma, can you wave at everybody? Thank you. You met Christy and Rachel in the previous slides. Here's more of the Providence Population Health Team, all not present for picture. We have community health workers, promotoras, community paramedics, nurse, medical assistant, ShamWow wizard, health equity nurse practitioner, social workers, and an amazing pharmacist manager. They work for anyone, with anyone for free and do not bill. Unfortunately, insurance companies haven't started paying for love and kindness. And without a doubt, they have done more to change lives than anyone I've ever seen. They are in attendance today, all of them, because I cannot imagine sharing this journey without them. My team has illuminated the journey and like thousands of medically and socially complex patients in their care. They soldier on with love and kindness and compassion, creating healing, authentic relationships. They are also the bunch that delivered food kits and art kits and oximeters and thermometers and Gatorade and groceries and diapers to your doorstep during COVID. So I love you guys. So thank you so much. Could you please give them a round of applause? Yeah. Thank you. So the dozens of overburdening, confusing bureaucratic systems people have in their lives cannot do what love and kindness are doing. If the amazing YWCA advocates of Anne Marie and Mary Bird treated Sharon or Desiree through a medical model of care lens, rather than opening their hearts, leading with love, where would that have got them? If our population health team tried to fit Norma in a prescriptive bottle of box of should've, would've, and oughta, instead of investing love as an activity like Christy and Rachel did, if my mom had not found herself on the other side of kindness at a taco time, how would we be different? How would life be different for her, for me? Would we even be here? Kindness, what a simple way to tell another struggling soul that there is love to be found in the world. Wrapping up here, Scott Peck in his bestseller, The Different Drum, defines community as the coming together of a group of individuals who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than their mask of composure, who have developed some significant commitment to rejoice together, mourn together, delight in each other, and make other condition their own. Every day we can practice the lessons learned in community and be kind and courteous. And we don't have to get it right. We get a new chance every day. As a high reliable organization at Providence, we have a daily safety huddle at the hospital. And we have to ask each other, what actions am I taking to have a safe day? We leave the huddle a bit empowered. We have what it takes to have a safe day. Swap out the word safe with kind. What actions am I taking to have a kind day? I have what it takes to be kind. We can by a smile, a greeting, a conversation, and a kind deed. The love we make in community stays with us wherever we go. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Jim, you don't mind if I just ask everyone to add a couple zeros to their donation, right? Yeah, this precious organization, the YWCA, my team and I have really got to know over the course of the pandemic, coordinating community clinical linkages of care. Many a nights I spoke with Mary Bird really late and Anne Marie. All I heard in their voices was love. I also ask that you leave here today with a commitment to be kinder, to let love lead. And why don't you try to forgive someone and pick up the phone and call someone? Let them hear your voice. Check on one of your older neighbors. Lionel Richie said, I think the whole world's dying to hear someone say, I love you. I think that if we can leave that legacy of love and passion in the world, I think we've done our job, that in a world that's getting a little bit colder by the day. I'm convinced that's the only thing that's going to move us forward. And we are all healers. We are all capable of healing our homes, our neighbors, and our communities. Tackling and fixing systems is overwhelming, exhausting, and wearing us out. But our superpowers of kindness, compassion, and love are infinite. Go practice some real love, gritty, dangerous, wild-eyed, justice-seeking love. Thank you.
Becky, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you shared with us. And I certainly feel ready to go out and spread a little love. We've got a tradition here at the YWCA that all of our luncheon speakers become automatic members of our leadership circle. So it is my pleasure to present you with your very own Silver Circle necklace. Thank you, Becky. There's that necklace. And thank all of you for being here today. I hope that everyone leaves here knowing that they too can lead with love. We all do it every day in our quiet and simple ways. Every time that we put ourselves out there for the growth of our community, which you're all doing right now. Just remember, leading with love doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be complicated. So I encourage you all to go out today and lead with love. Thank you all so much for being here.